Voice note number 31, we're continuing with the dispatcher section of the admin and dispatcher training, 15 October 2024. I said on this voice note, we're going to look at the procedures that dispatchers should follow. And just off the bat, I need to just raise a particular concern as an example of within the procedures that a dispatcher follows. I've already said, please keep your messages short and your posts to a minimum. And I think a classical example to point out at this stage is, imagine a WhatsApp group with 1,000 members on it. And then one person posts a message and says, can somebody send me a link to a particular group? Say, for example, is there a group where people can buy tires? Now, I mean, every person that owns a car may very well be interested in buying tires for their car. And out of the 1,000 members on the group, 500 of them might be interested in buying tires. So then the administrator will come back and say, I'll send it to you privately. So we got a question and we've got an answer, 2 posts. And then 500 people will come back and say, send it to me as well, please. Send it to me as well. Can you send it to me? I need it as well. I would be interested. Oh, please don't forget to send it to me as well. So we will end up with 502 damn messages being posted to the group. Instead of the administrator coming back and just posting the link and that's it, it's done, it's finished, and it's dusted. But that being said, it also comes back and then you got 500 people coming back and saying thank you. And then you got the administrator coming back after each post, it's a pleasure. By the time we get to the end of this, this is the first part of a dispatcher's procedure on what not to do. So now 500 people are coming back and saying thank you, and then they're not doing it all one after each other. It happens over the next 2 to 3 hours. And for the next 2 to 3 hours, then the admin is coming back and saying, well, it's a pleasure, you're welcome, not a problem, I'm here to serve you, I hope you find it useful. By the time that we get to the end of that simple question, in this case, it's a question for a group link. It is not a question requesting help or asking for help. You've got over 1,000 messages being sent on the group. Very first part of a dispatcher's responsibility process. You are not here to be polite. You are not here to enter into conversation. You are not here to, I don't know, discuss anything at all. You're not here for discussion purposes. You are here for one purpose and one purpose only on a group as a dispatcher. And that is to determine what the person needs and to get them the help that they need as quickly as possible. In the medical term, or in a medical term that we have been taught, the first thing to remember is that a person is considered dead, clinically dead, when they stop breathing and their heart stops pumping. And they are considered biologically dead after 3 months. 3 months, listen to me. 3 minutes of no oxygen supply to the brain. And whenever a paramedic will respond to any MVA accident of any nature, whether it's a medical accident, a medical case, a motor vehicle accident, a fall accident, it doesn't make a difference. There's a thing called the golden hour. And that golden hour is quite simply that if you don't get a person help within the golden hour, their chances of survival are reduced dramatically, especially when it comes to priority 1 cases. P1 cases need help now, not in 5 minutes, not in 10 minutes, not in half an hour. And if dispatchers are taking 20 minutes to log a call, those patients are dead. And now the families could turn around and say, I asked for help on the group, and it took the dispatchers half an hour to get us assistance. And because of the delay in providing assistance, the breadwinner of the family cannot provide, is no longer here. Limley has got no income. And I see my voice going da. So let me end this one and we'll continue in the next one. Okay, voice note number 32 on the 15th of October 2024. And I picked up on my last voice note that I might have to bring my microphone in a little bit. Yeah, my audio quality is playing up and it's sounds like I'm busy shouting into the microphone, whereas the microphone is actually approximately a meter away from me, so it gets a bit hollow. I apologize for that, but I'm going to leave it where it is in any event. Otherwise, I'm going to throw everything out for my Zoom and whatever. Okay, so basically, just going back to the delays that can be experienced before, getting the call logged and that. That is something that I know it's a difficult one, people. I'm not bringing this up to you to discourage you from becoming an admin or dispatcher, but I'm actually saying to you, you've got to take your task and your role and consider it in a very, very serious light. It is not something that must be taken lightly, which is why, personally, and also as a director of disaster relief CERT, I don't believe that non-EMS personnel should in actual fact be, let's call it senior management group administrator level. We've got 70-year-old grannies that are running groups and providing emergency assistance and have got absolutely no clue what they are doing. And on some of the groups, I've actually seen that they've only responded half an hour and an hour after the incident has actually occurred. And that is very concerning because, as I say, within minutes, a person's life can be lost, and definitely within that first hour, within that golden hour, a person can lose their life. And as an admin and as an administrator, you need to take this seriously. You need to consider it in a serious light, which is why if a group is going to do dispatching, then the group must in actual fact ensure there are multiple persons that are willing to provide dispatching or to log calls. It's not a problem to rope in not only individuals, but the various private security service control rooms in particular. Guys, you are in actual fact operating on multiple groups, so you already know how to integrate with IER or even with the dispatch centers itself via 112 or any other direct means that you might have through OCC, CCIN, etc., etc., etc. And if you've got the time, although it's not your responsibility in any manner, but if you are able to assist in the dispatching, then perhaps you should also reach out and let the group administrators know so that the group members know who it is that can in actual fact assist in terms of dispatching. To give you an example, on one of my active crime sharing groups, we do get calls every now and again for medical and fire assistance. We don't have dispatchers at all on the group, but in cases like this, either our administrators or one of the control rooms will in actual fact pick up on the call. I must admit, 99% of the time the group, while the group's been running for several years, the groups have been running for several years, and the group members are pretty disciplined in terms of providing the initial messages, pin drops, posts, requirements, contact on scene up front, and literally within a minute, one of the control rooms will say stand by, and that's it, nothing more. No further questions, no nothing, as long as the location, what is required, the situation, the contact on scene is supplied, and even the pin drop is supplied. They'll just come back and say SB or standby, noted, or one simple term, acknowledged, and that's it. There's no further message. There's no further communication. And then after they get the reference number, whether they've done it through Namola, IER, or directly through whatever means, they'll provide feedback. Your reference number is this, and they'll use the reply to. Nothing else. That's it. Total end of the call. Finished. And then when the services arrive on scene, then the members will in actual fact come back and say, okay, Ambo's here, SAPS is here, or they'll come back and give an update. The suspect has moved, to another street. Then maybe another member of the group will come up and say, yeah, we can see them here. And then the control room will say, I'll update SAPS. That's it. No further. And this is where we should be going, and this is where this process and procedures that dispatchers need to follow becomes important. And I want to try and bring it down to a bullet point, step-by-step process on voice note number 33. Voice note number 33, 15th of October 2024. I think I'm actually going to hold back on further voice notes after this one. As you can hear, my voice is already becoming a little bit on the horse side. So I think I should bounce it and right away into the sunset. Okay, let's have a look at how do we approach the step-by-step process for dispatchers. I think the first thing we need to understand is, what do we usually see on a WhatsApp group from the time that somebody posts a message asking for assistance? Now, as I said before, that could come through initially just as I need help. But most times people will say, I need an ambulance at such and such a place. My mother's not feeling well, or something along those lines. Then after that, one of us will post pin drop, please. And then a pin drop comes through, and then we'll ask contact on scene. But then one of the administrators might come back and say, can I use you as the contact on scene? And then maybe there's another question or two that comes in from the community. Also, like contact on scene, and somebody might say, well, why is she not feeling well? And then the original poster might come back and say, well, maybe it's food poisoning. Or another family member will come up and say, no, she never took her tablets, or she's just come out of hospital. And all this is how it will go on. And then somebody else will come back and say, yeah, food poisoning is a terrible thing. I had it 2 years ago, and this and that happens, and all the rest of it. Or it could be a shooting incident that's been reported. And then people are starting to make statements, yeah, but this happens every Friday night, and it's happening every night. And, we as a community, we're not feeling safe, and we need help here. We can't carry on with this constant shooting. Our people are being killed. And each one of these is a different post. So the very first process that you as a dispatcher need to follow is read all of the messages before you reply or respond or react. Now listen carefully to what I said. Read all of the messages before you react or respond. Because the person has posted something like, I need help. 5 community members have posted comments and asked questions. Not one of them is asking for the contact on scene. And as an administrator or as a dispatcher, you read the message, I need help, and you automatically type a message, what help do you need? Now remember, most of you are operating on a cell phone. you are seeing maybe, what's it, two or three lines of actual text on a message. I just want to have a look at an iPhone 8, for example. Generally, you're looking at maybe 2 or 3 messages, depending on how long they are. A single line entries, you're probably looking at 4 or 5 messages. So now you got into the point of asking for a pin drop or what help do you need. You haven't scrolled to the bottom and the person has already answered your question before you've even asked it. So before you ask any questions, before you react to a message, scroll to the bottom, read through all the messages, and then ask the relevant question. And as I said before, don't ask just one. If you need to know what help and you need to know the contact on scene and you need to know the location and there is no pin drop, post it all in one message. In one message. Shift, enter. Up arrow, enter. Up arrow, enter. Up arrow to turn it off. Up arrow to turn it back on. Enter to create a new paragraph. Your very first process is read all the messages before responding. And then, of course, from there, you can ask any additional follow-up messages. Once you have determined that you need A, B, C, D at location, whatever, and you've got the contact on scene and the contact telephone number, and you know what the situation is, and you got a pin drop, you only need to reply with one word. Stand by, or just say, please wait. Or the short version, SB, Sierra Bravo, the letter S and the letter B, stand by. Ignore everything else. When you're reading through your messages, you are looking for the information you need to log the call with Namola or IER or hand over to 112's control center, whoever it is that they might patch you through. That is it. Stand by. End of the story. You don't need to add anything else at all. 99, I'm going to carry on with the next voice note on this part of the 99%, as I see I'm over the 6-minute mark. So we'll continue with voice note number 34 shortly, 15 October 2024 as I end voice note 33. Voice note number 34, 15th of October 2024. Okay, on the last voice note, I was about to say that 99% of people who are reporting an incident actually do answer the phone when the phone rings, believe it or not. So when we have a look at the process of the dispatcher now, getting to the point of realizing, okay, I got all the information I need. I don't need to ask for anything else. I definitely don't need to say thank you to every statement and supply of information. As I said, you're not here to be polite. So you get to the point and you say, stand by. There's no need to tell people. And this happens on multiple groups. There's no need to tell people to answer their telephone. Because 90%, 99% of them do. So for every 100 calls that come in, dispatchers are telling people to answer their phone, of which 99% of them do. Why don't you wait for Namola or for IER to actually come back and say the contact on scene is not answering, can we get an alternate telephone number? I know, I've done it many times, using 112 directly or even 10111. I tell them who I am from a control room, and then they say, let me see if I can get hold of them quickly. I did a case now in this month of October 2024, where the person that requested assistance was somewhere outside Plettenberg May, up in the mountain, on one of the mountainous roads. While I was busy with the search and rescue control room on the phone, they were also trying to contact the contact on scene by phone. to see if they couldn't get through from their side. And then they also said to me, no, they're not answering. I said, no, well, then that confirms it's not a network problem my side, and they probably are out of range or their phone has gone flat. So search and rescue was dispatched. For those of you that don't know, I'm in Roodepoort, Johannesburg. We don't need to tell people to answer their phone. If IER comes back and says, we're not getting an answer, sure, then go back on the group and say, do a reply to. Now, just take note of what I've said. Go to the first post of where that person has requested assistance and do a reply to that message, not do a standby or anything else. Go to the first message, I need help, and do a reply to that message and state, the contact on scene is not answering the phone. Please send alternate contact telephone number. That just means there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 new messages posted to the group. Then you can give that to IER in whatever format you're doing it, or give it over to 112 or whatever the case might be. Just remember, while you're on 112, it's not a problem. You can go back to WhatsApp. You can operate WhatsApp while you're on the telephone. You just can't receive WhatsApp telephone calls. So just bear that one in mind as well moving forward. You don't need to tell people what they must do. They will do it. Somewhere along the line, they probably will. And as I say, we don't need to say stand by. So the process is simple. Determine and ask for any information that's outstanding. Tell them to stand by, point number 2. Contact NAMOLA or contact IER, pass on the information. Provide any feedback to the group, i.e., for example, I need an alternate contact number. Wait, you don't even need to tell the people I'm waiting for the reference number. It's unnecessary traffic. Don't worry about it. Wait till IER or NAMOLA give you a reference number, or 112's dispatch centers give you a reference number. Then post the reference number to the group. That's all. Nothing more. Nothing more at all. Even at this point, I'm also inclined to also recommend that when you do the reference number, add just one more point and say, please let the group know when each service arrives. That's it. End of the discussion. And then if the person comes back and says, okay, 100%, thank you, whatever, you don't say thank you. You don't say it's a pleasure. You don't say welcome. You don't add anything at all. If you do want to, do something, then do a react and give a thumbs up. Don't post anything. Just leave it at that. Let's move on to voice note number 35, as I end 34 on the 15th of October. Voice note number 35, 15 October 2024. I took a bit of a break there, about an hour or so. Gave my larynx a bit of a rest and had a cup of coffee. Okay, so in the last voice note, I was saying there's no need to be polite. There's no need to provide thank yous and, pleasures and whatever. There's no need to provide lengthy discussions or otherwise to the group as a dispatcher. Most definitely not as a dispatcher. That step-by-step process, again, just to reinforce what I've said, is quite simple. And that is from the time the first call comes in, the only thing you are going to look at is to ask for the information you need. Ask for it in one voice, a voice message, or one text message by using the shift enter to take you to the next line. Once you have got all of the information you need, just tell the group to stand by. As you work through the messages, tell the group to stand by. You have to ignore every single, so let's go back to the start of that there and just say, first step is to establish all of the information requested from the person that posts. Ignore all of your messages. And as you are working through your messages, don't respond to the first sort of post where you need information. read all of the messages in the group before you go and ask questions. Go and read all of the unread messages in the group before you provide any feedback. Because for all you know, while you're working with dispatching to Namola or sending the information on to Namola or to IER, the original person might come back and say, well, you know, look, cancel that ambulance, we're going to transport privately. At which point now you posting, yes, the reference number. There's a time again where you can come back to them, you know, where there's a cancellation, do a react, give a thumbs up, go back to Namola or IER and ask them to cancel. And when the confirmation comes forward, if you haven't posted the reference number, then don't post anything. Don't post a notification. Don't post done or sorted or completed or cancelled or whatever. Just leave it. However, if you have posted the reference number and IER comes back and says reference number such and such has been cancelled, then forward that on to the group. So the procedure is quite simple. As a dispatcher, the only thing you are going to do is establish all the information, gather all the information together that's needed to ask IER to log the call. Next step is to go to IER and log the call, tell the group to stand by, send the information to IER and Namola, wait for the reference number, and once you got the reference number, you post that to the group. Now, if you look at that process, regardless of what happens with the other community members, that is where the administrators should come in and delete the unnecessary members' posts. So if you take a look at what happens on a line by line by line basis, the request comes in, there might be questions by the admins or the dispatchers requiring additional information. There's a message that the dispatcher is dealing with it. Look, if two dispatchers come up and they start working on the same call, the two of you just go privately and decide who's going to handle the call, and then the other one you can stand down and let one person deal with the call, let one person dispatch. Or you could in actual fact say, okay, the first dispatcher will do JMPD, the second dispatcher will do AMBO, and you're speeding the process up. So you've gathered the information. You are not responding to anything because you're reading through every single message. You're going to IER, you're posting a request for assistance. You've let the group know to stand by. Then you get the reference number. Then you post the reference number. When you post the reference number, go back to the original call for assistance, do a reply to, and then, you know, copy and paste the reference number in there so that this becomes vitally important, which we will cover in the next voice note. You do the reply to the original incident report or request, and you put that out. And then after you've done that IER number, on that very same message, you can do the shift enter, especially if you've done a copy and a paste, shift enter. And on the next line, please notify us when each service arrives, and push enter, and that's it, it's done deal. If the guy comes back or the woman comes back with a thank you, appreciate it, will do whatever, leave it at that. Do not add anything else. Don't enter into a conversation. And the same thing applies with any other unnecessary messages that might come through on the group. As a dispatcher, do not enter into conversation, please. That is part of the process. So let's move on with voice note number 36 now, because I want to cover dealing with multiple or the receiving of multiple incidents at one time. Voice note number 36, 16th of October 2024. Hopefully it doesn't give me a blue screen error and fail again. Now, listening to the previous voice notes, you'll see that it's not actually that easy to do a bullet point list of procedures that dispatchers should in actual fact follow, because each procedure or each step can actually raise additional questions which will take you off in different directions. So very much of a flowchart. Question one will have a yes, no answer. And if it's yes, you need to do that. And if it's no, then you need to do something else. And then when you've done that on the second set of questioning, there's a yes, no answer to each one again. And then you'll end up doing something totally different. And so it goes on. So in essence, this is where it does take a little bit of practice, and it becomes necessary to get some experience in the dispatching side. However, I think the basics to it is quite simply, as I've said time and time again, gather the information that is required in order to log the call, tell the group to stand by, go to Namola, go to IER or dial 112 as a dispatcher, log the call. If you've got to log on 112 and dial 2 or 3 times because you need SAPS, you need AMBO, you need JMPD, then follow that process. Just remember that if you are in actual fact patched through to SAPS, they can't put you back to the call center, so you'll have to phone again. Then get all of the reference numbers, even if you write them down on a piece of paper for the interim, and then come back to the group, and you can post your updates. And then, I mean, your reference numbers, then you leave it at that, no further discussions. And of course, you have to use the reply to of the original request for assistance so that everybody can follow where those references are actually applicable, or for which call those references are applicable for, especially if you've got 2 or 3 calls coming in for assistance all at the same time within a very short period of time, or when the previous calls haven't already been concluded and services on scene, and you can consider the incident closed. And that's what I want to talk about on voice note number 36. When you get multiple incidents coming in, as I mentioned previously, when the first incident comes, is posted, and you get 2 dispatchers responding to the incident, just between yourselves, determine who's going to deal with the call, so that only one dispatcher deals with that call. And of course, the group member will then only be dealing with that dispatcher. Now, I know sometimes it makes sense that maybe both dispatchers can be involved, and the first one notifies JMPD and the second one notifies SAPS, for example. I advise against it, especially if you are using Namola or you are using IER. You can post the request for both services to IER at one time and let IER come back and provide the update for both SAPS and for JMPD. Therefore, only one administrator needs to deal with it. So when the first call comes in, determine which dispatcher is going to deal with it, follow the process, gather the info, tell them to stand by, go to Namola, request assistance, wait for the reference numbers, and come back. But now in the middle of all of that, you get a second incident coming in. Fine. Then a second dispatcher can attend to the second incident. Dispatcher 1, you stay away from the second incident. The same way dispatcher 2, stay away from the first incident, and work through exactly the same process. And this is where it becomes crucial and absolutely critical to utilizing the reply to option of the original request, so that when references are posted, it is quite clear that this reference number applies to this incident. So this reference number will be for incident 1, and another reference number will be for incident 2. That way, there is no confusion, and you're not going to end up with a situation where half an hour later, the contact on scene for incident 1 is going to come back and say, where's the reference number? What's happening? Nobody has arrived, etc., etc. Meantime, in the confusion, the call wasn't actually logged. And then, of course, if you're getting a third call come into it, between the dispatchers, if the first dispatcher has already issued a reference number, then the first dispatcher, the first dispatcher can pick up on the third incident. So that between, if you've got 2 dispatchers that are available, then you go 1, 2, 3, dispatcher 1, dispatcher 2, dispatcher 1, and you follow that sequence. If there are 3 dispatchers who are monitoring the group, then the third dispatcher can come in and say, I will handle incident number 3. And you can call it incident 1, incident 2, or incident 3, and then reply to the third incident request and post it out that way. Okay, let's move on with voice note number 37. And of course, this is the 16th of October, and I'm closing voice note number 36. Voice note number 37, 16th of October, 2024. Having had a look at a simplified method or procedure or process to follow for dispatches, there's a couple of things that you also need to be aware of with regards to caveats. And these caveats are the things that could be missed. Always remember that 99% of your group members don't actually know what they need at the best of times at the scene of an incident due to many, many, many reasons. And it's not meant in an offensive manner. To give you an example, there's a motor vehicle accident, and the person will say there's a serious accident and the guy's bleeding badly and we need ambulance, and that's it. And you get your pin drop and you get your contact on scene and you give it off to IER, and IER comes back with a reference number, and it takes a bit of time, especially for GPG to arrive. We might have one of the private services pitching up, at which point that's 20 minutes past the original, for example, posting time. And now that particular private service or GPG arrive on scene, and they discover that the person is actually trapped inside of the vehicle. Now our second request comes through. Now we need fire to come and rescue the patient. Well, that can take another 10 or 15 minutes. So what has happened is we are delaying services arriving on scene by 30 minutes, 40 minutes, if not longer. Now, this is normally where if the person says, yeah, if the contact on scene says, listen, the guy is stuck in the car, you don't need to ask these questions on the telephone to start off with. The first thing that I need to cover here, I think, is whether or not the dispatchers are phoning the contact on scene, IERs. You see, this becomes important, because if you as a dispatcher are going to phone the contact on scene to get any additional information, which is sometimes quicker than putting it out on the group, that's all fair and well. You can ask the contact on scene just to check if they could possibly determine or ascertain whether the person is trapped in the vehicle or not. And if he is, then you're not only going to ask IER for an ambulance, you are also going to ask IER for fire. But at the same token, regardless of whether fire is needed or not, you should be asking IER to dispatch JMPD as well, because JMPD have the responsibility of enforcing traffic rules, regulations, and flow at the scene of that accident. That's not a SAPS task. There's a second caveat to consider. The guy now says, we got a motor vehicle accident, I need SAPS. Why do you need SAPS? SAPS are there to deal with crime. JMPD is there to deal with traffic. So don't dispatch SAPS or ask for SAPS to be dispatched. Ask for JMPD to be dispatched. So just on this voice note alone, two simple caveats. Always try and determine, and yeah, you can ask on the group when they ask for an ambulance because of a motor vehicle accident. Ask the question, is anybody trapped in the vehicle so that fire could be dispatched? Look, I remember many years ago, Roodepoort Fire, for example, had a policy that the minute that they dispatched an ambulance, fire was dispatched as well in the event that there were risk of fire due to the MVA or due to or any entrapments due to the MVA. Johannesburg Traffic Department and Joburg Fire didn't have the same policy and procedure. Somebody had to request fire if fire was required. And the same thing applied with ambulance. You had to do a direct request for it. So always remember to ask the appropriate questions with an MVA. The services that would normally be required is JMPD if there are no injuries. But I want to cover this particular point on voice note number 38, because there's something that should be considered in some serious manner, seeing as I'm over the 5-minute mark. Voice note number 38, 16 October 2024. We're talking about caveats that dispatchers should take into consideration when dispatching. So I used the example that a person asks for assistance because there's an MVA. Well, at every MVA, you should in actual fact dispatch JMPD. Really? No. The only time that JMPD should be dispatched if traffic is obstructed and is expected to be obstructed for a long period of time. I notice on all of the groups, the minute there's an MVA, traffic should be, a Metro PD should be dispatched. And then a few minutes later, cancel Metro PD because they're going to the police station. You see, Metro PD must be dispatched when the obstruction is expected to close the roadway off for an extended period of time. If the persons involved in the motor vehicle accident, all the vehicle owners or vehicle drivers, are able to move the vehicles to the side of the road where there are no injuries, then they can exchange personal details and they can do one of two things. They can go to SAPS and report the case, the motor vehicle accident at SAPS, which is the older and most common method of reporting an MVA. However, what many people don't know is that you can report an MVA on the eNatus website as well. So for minor motor vehicle accidents, that is motor vehicle accidents without injuries, you can actually open up an account on Natus Online, which is a simple email URL. It's online.natus, natis.gov.za. And once you've registered on the site, you can go and report it there. You don't even need to go to a police station. They will also give a reference number that will be used for insurance purposes, etc., etc., etc. So you can then ask the contact on scene whether JMPD will be required. Can they in actual fact move the vehicles to the side of the road if and only if there are no injuries? The minute that any person is injured at a scene of an accident, then JM and ambulance must be dispatched, not SAPS. And if there's an unruly crowd at the scene of a motor vehicle accident, well, that should also be dealt with by JMPD, not by SAPS. You see, SAPS must be called for crime-related incidents or where there is a potential risk of a crime. Or if in the event the crowd does get unruly and firearms are now presented and pointed at people and that type of thing, then also dispatch SAPS, not just JMPD. And as I said, if there is any possibility of an entrapment, definitely dispatch fire at the same time. Make sure it's out on the group so any of the rescue personnel on the group are made aware of it. and of course notify IER of the potential risk of entrapments. So the more information that can be gathered, the better. And of course, then allow IER the opportunity to contact the contact on scene and get any additional information as and when required. Finally, the one thing that I would like to say at this particular point, there are many other caveats that need to be considered, and I'm just going to bring them up voice note by voice note. But at this moment in time, always gather as much info as you possibly can. In the event somebody posts something and then they don't respond, as a dispatcher on the group, so I'll deal with this incident and then phone, using the WhatsApp call function, phone that person to get more information. Look, guys, you cannot be expected to use your own airtime to phone somebody. If they're not prepared to follow the group and provide the relevant information, etc., then you as a dispatcher are under no obligation to provide any assistance. And I think that is something that must be clearly understood. But do your best to try and get as much information and to be of a benefit to the local community and the group members as a whole. Right, I'm going to close this off. We'll move on with voice note number 39 at the end of this. Voice note 39, 16 October 2024. Just looking at things that dispatchers should consider when posts come through. We've spoken about the motor vehicle accident, okay? I think I've covered that in reasonably good detail at the moment. You guys really need to just seriously consider between the four services what is required and to work with it accordingly. But let's go to a case where residents may post information regarding suicides, for example, or not only suicides, wherever there's a death involved of a person, whether it be a suicide, whether it be something that would be considered as natural causes. Anytime that a person reports a person who has lost their life, i.e. they are dead, or they may have lost their life, therefore, or thereby they don't know if they are or not dead. Right, so we need to look at this in two aspects. If it is categorically confirmed that the person has passed away, then two things are needed. One, we definitely need somebody from the paramedical or GPG ambulance or private ambulance service to do a declaration of death or DOD. So the declaration needs to be done. Therefore, you are going to have to dispatch a GPG or a private ambulance service if people are prepared to pay for it. Any other deaths that might be suspected, then of course, definitely, dispatch GPG. That is without question. Wherever there's the potential that a person, where it is suspected that a person has passed away, and it's not categorically confirmed that they are or have passed away, always dispatch GPG. Now, in the event that it is established that the person definitely has passed away, due to whatever reason the person may feel, always dispatch SAPS, including during incidents or reports of where suicide is suspected or has in actual fact been confirmed. So you definitely need AMBO and you definitely need SAPS on both of those. At this moment in time, even if it means that you take this privately, be careful with sharing sensitive information on the WhatsApp groups or allowing sensitive information on the WhatsApp groups. So if somebody comes up on the group and says, yeah, please dispatch AMBO because so-and-so, for example, has committed suicide, and they give the address, then rather ask the person to delete that and to send you the address privately so you can deal with it. Purely because of the fact that, being a closed community group, you're looking at communities that know each other. And now other family members and friends might be made aware of this. So this is something that we need to consider moving forward on any of our emergency groups. the location, etc., etc. We need to be sensitive to the family and the friends and all the rest of it. We have had incidents where people have been shot, for example, and the addresses have been made known and the family members have been made aware of it. When it comes to shooting on a street, as long as on a street or in a public place, it is best not to provide the person's name if they are known, etc., because, you know, you can say, for example, let's use this as an example. So there's a shooting at address 66 street name. That doesn't necessarily mean that the occupants of 66 street lane are involved. It could be a random stranger. So to the family members of 66 street lane, if you are on the group, try not to overreact. Group members, of course, shouldn't be asking additional questions. Administrators should be deleting those messages, etc., etc. And as a dispatcher, you shouldn't be engaging in a conversation, but you could, in actual fact, say to the person, don't use the reply to in this particular instance because they've given an address. Rather, just say to the group at that time, please, can you delete the personal information and send it to me privately so we can deal with it privately. And this is in these sensitive cases of suicides, or attempted suicides in particular. Always bear that in mind. Find a way to get it off of the group. Administrators, whatever you do, if you can, get it off the group as quickly as possible. The less people that see it, the better. And then you can also send, as an administrator, that particular person a message privately and say, please send me the information. I'll give it to the dispatcher privately. And then they can send you the location in text. They can send you the contact on scene. They can send you the pin drop. Everything can be sent to either the admin, whoever takes control over the situation, or directly to the dispatcher if the dispatcher has jumped in quickly enough. Right, let's move on then with voice note number 40. Voice note number 40 on the 16th of October 2024. We're looking at some of the caveats and things that the dispatchers, but also, I mean, it does apply to the administrators as well, because the administrators, look, I think I've said it before, but this is a good opportunity to say it. Administrators need to oversee what the dispatchers do. Admins, you are liable for anything that the dispatcher does. So if a dispatcher, for example, provides medical advice, well, then please delete it. They're not allowed to do it. It's as simple as that. Dispatchers don't take it personally. It's illegal. Therefore, it has to come off. So whatever we're doing at the moment with regards to some of the caveats and that, I mean, actually, the admins can get involved and take control of the group, which is your ultimate responsibility. And this is where it now comes to the point where, for example, we've just had a situation where outside of a school or in a school, whichever, it's irrelevant. Anything to do with schools have to be handled in an exceptionally different manner, as well as a suicide incident. And there's a twofold reason for this. First and foremost, and I'm not saying it's the most important, the school structures have a very strict code of conduct that has to be adhered to by its staff members. For example, and this is based on a previous incident on a totally different group, school teachers may not post information into the public domain of anything that's happening inside of the school. And here there's multiple reasons for that. One, schools have a very specific emergency plan that must be adhered to. Those plans involve documented, or at least should involve specifically documented emergency procedures to be followed. And it'll include SAPs, it'll include Metro, it'll include fire, it'll include social development, it'll include social workers, It will include the school governing body, and it will include CPFs and block watchers and neighborhood watchers. So when a school teacher posts a message on a group, they can and usually are put through a disciplinary process. So we need to be very careful about sharing information regarding schools. The second reason, well, before I go on to the second reason, let's have a look at it might not be a teacher who posts that information, but it could be a student who either posts it directly to a group or where that student passes that information on to their parent. Or you got a school teacher passing that information on to a family member. And now the parent or the family member comes and posts it out on the group. We sit with the exact same problem. The student probably won't be disciplined because that doesn't apply to them, but it will create absolute havoc in terms of the actual school's procedures, emergency procedures. And the school's procedures, they have to, in the event that a pupil, for example, is now being subjected to, like the pointing of a firearm, the teacher should take that up to the office. It should be dealt with by the principal. It should be logged immediately by the school with SAPS directly. SAPS might, in actual fact, put that out. We do have SAPS members on the groups. They might, in actual fact, receive it themselves, and then they're requesting assistance from the group itself, at which point the contact on scene does become a problem child overall. And in all honesty, the school's telephone number should be utilized as the contact on scene. So to help dispatchers when a school is involved, ask the person to provide the school's contact telephone number instead of a contact on scene. And then whoever answers that switchboard is the one that will have to, in actual fact, verify that assistance is required. And on that point, I want to take this into voice note, into the next voice note as to what we can do if we don't have a contact on scene.